proceedings. Today we have two sessions. One is by Professor Arvind Jha, Dean, School of Education, Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University, Lucknow. And the second session will be by Professor Amit Kaur, Dean, Faculty of Education, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. So you will be lucky that today you will learn from two deans. We know that the role of a dean in a university in the teaching learning process and in the research activities. So we all will be lucky that we will learn so many good things from these two personalities, which need not any kind of introduction in the field of research or in the field of education. I will start with Dr. Jha. Sir is, as I have already told, Sir is Dean, School of Education, Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University, Lucknow. Before joining the present position, Dr. Jha has served in various reputed institutions, Central University of Himachal Pradesh, Dharamshala, and Mahatma Gandhi International Hindi University, Wardha. The expertise of Dr. Jha in the field of research is well established now. Sir has guided more than 30 fellows at master level, 20 at MPhil level, 7 at PhD level. So 57 research studies have been already completed under the able guidance of Dr. Arvind Jha, and 8 are presently working on their PhD work under the guidance of Dr. Jha. As our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir last day said that social science research is an evergreen research. This is an evergreen field. So Sir has expertise in the field of social science research. Apart from the guidance work in the research field, Sir has written a wonderful books. I would like to mention two special names which are widely acclaimed books. One is the Naya Philosophy, and the second one is Constructivism, Epistemology and Pedagogy, Insight into Teaching, Learning and Knowing. Sir has many good publications in various reputed national and international journals, and Sir has delivered many expert talks in various reputed institutions. It will take half an hour to read the brief CV of Professor Jha. So I conclude with these words, and I humbly request Dr. Khushvinder Kumarji, President, Council for Teacher Education Foundation and Principal MM College, to welcome all the delegates, the participants of this webinar, and our resource persons for today's sessions. Over to Dr. Khushvinder Kumarji.
Dear delegates, very good afternoon. I take this opportunity to extend welcome to Dr. Arvind Jha, Dean, School of Education, B.R. Ambedkar University, Lucknow. He will be delivering today on formulation of research question, objective, and hypothesis. As already discussed that in yesterday's inaugural address, Professor V.S. Ghumman, Honorable Vice Chancellor, he very rightly said that social reality is a combination of epistemology and the quantitative analysis borrowed from the sciences. Dr. Jha is a combination of the two, as already has been introduced. He is a man of mathematics and also of epistemology and Nyaya philosophy. I hope he'll be doing good justice with the topic that how we have to distinguish and relate the three things: research, question, hypothesis, and objectives. I also take this opportunity to extend welcome to Professor Amit Jha, Dean, Professor Amit Kaur, Dean, Faculty of Education, Guru Nanak Dev University. He is also having experience of about 25 years to his credit, and presently he is coordinator of Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya scheme in GNDU also. So I once again extend welcome to the honorable resource persons of the day, and without taking much time, I'm handing over to the resource persons. Welcome, Professor Jha. Over to you, please.
Thank you, sir. This is a great honor and privilege as well for me to be on this panel where Professor Amit Kautz is already there and whose research contribution is, in a sense, outstanding in the field of education. But before I share my, understanding about this topic, I must thank my friend, Professor Khushvinder, the principal of the College, Patiala, an old friend, almost 15 to 20 years when I was in a college, and he was already a principal that time, right? And since then, we have gelled well, and whenever we need each other, academically, professionally, and personally, we are for each other friends. I have been asked to talk about the research questions, research problems, and hypotheses, and to correlate the two. Pravitji, I would like to share my screen. Please allow me to share my screen.
Yes, sir, sure. Sir, you can share your screen, sir.
Okay.
You are co-host, sir.
Okay. So can you see my...
Yes, sir. Very clearly, sir. Very clearly.
Fine. So friends, this topic has been given to me. Recently, what has happened that I confined myself more for the other dimension of the research. But this is the topic that has been given to me, and I hope I'll be able to do justice with this. If not, I'm pretty sure Dr. Amit, another good friend of mine from Punjab, he will take care of this. So the research, my topic is formulation of research questions, objectives, and hypotheses in educational context. Friends, I'm sharing with you my email. If the time will not permit, you can ask me questions, and I'll try to the best of my ability to answer. Your questions are very important for me because this is the way I learn from you. I believe that learning is always two-way traffic. Today itself, early in the morning, I was talking on another platform, and they wanted me to talk about the qualitative research paradigm. And it was completely theoretical perspective. So what today I have decided to do is that instead of starting my presentation with a theoretical underpinning, I'll start with some practical measures, the samples that we have, and then we'll move to our theory. So today my approach will be from praxis to the theory. So in 4 parts I'll be talking. First, I'll show you some samples of the researches that have been done in the field of education, or which I have evaluated, or some of the researches that have already taken place under my supervision, and which I enjoyed thoroughly. And then how to formulate research questions, it means how to do it. So formulation we'll try to understand, and then I'll be talking about some practical suggestions in a theoretical mode. But why I am here? Yes, one reason is that Professor Khushvinder is a good friend of mine, whom I admire, and whose not only educational understanding, but the leadership quality I admire, but there are other reasons too. Friends, this is the work which I did that is called Research in Education. And now this book is available in India. Pearson Delhi has published under the banner of research, under the banner of Pearson, Research in Education by Best, Khan, and Jha. I would like to say few words about this book. I remember when for the first time, I exposed myself, or rather I oriented myself to the world of education. This was the book I was told by my teacher at Department of Education, University of Delhi, to read. And this was the first book which I read. And this was the book which really helped me to clear my JRF examination at the UGC level. But I had never realized the book I am reading today, the day will come when I'll be offered to revise this book for the Indian audience, and the book will be published in India, and my name will be associated with Best and Khan. This book for the first time was written by Best, then second time it was revised by Khan, and the third time I have revised. I'm fortunate enough to associate this book. But if you'll ask me from the international perspective, this book in India, we study at the master level, but in United States of America, this book is taught and studied at the undergraduate level. This is the one contribution of mine in the field of research in education as far as the book is concerned. The second one, again, what happened, this is the another one, again, Pearson published. Pearson gave me this opportunity after the popularity of that book, Qualitative Research for Education. Originally, it was written by Bogdan, then it was revised by Bicklin, and in India, I have revised this book. This book is the first book in the field of qualitative research in education, friends. So again, I'm honored when I find my name associated with these. Let me start, as I promised that I'll start with the latest thesis I have evaluated is from Central University of Kerala. This is visible on your screen, and the topic was effectiveness of multi-strategy life skill education programs on enhancing tolerance among secondary school students. Now let's see how this researcher has formulated their objective. So this is the, as I said, effectiveness of multi-strategy life skills education program on enhancing tolerance among secondary school students. And the first objective, according to this, this has been awarded, and that's why I'm using this, to develop and validate multi-strategy life skill education program among secondary school students. That's the first objective. The second objective, please keep the topic in mind or the research problem in mind, and then see, to study the level of tolerance among secondary school students. The third objective, to study the level of life skills among secondary school students, and so on and so forth. Keeping these things in mind, the same researcher, see, I have just mentioned 4 objectives, so 4 research hypotheses I'll talk about. There exists no significant difference in the mean scores of tolerance of secondary school students of treatment group at pre-test and post-test stages. Second, there exists no significant difference in the mean score of tolerance of secondary school students at pre-test and post-test stage with respect to general tolerance, religious tolerance, cultural tolerance, and social tolerance. The third hypothesis was there exists no significant difference between the pre-test and post-test mean score of tolerance of male student, and there exists no significant difference between the pre-test and post-test mean score of the tolerance of the female student. So see what you are observing, that when you look at the objectives, see what this researcher has done. As is the objective, so is the hypothesis. Only in terms of null hypothesis that there is a no significant difference. The time doesn't permit, otherwise I would have talked about that. Okay, let's see the second sample. Recently, I have evaluated another thesis from Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. As Parvez ji has just mentioned about me, that I have written a book on constructivism. So two theses have been recently written on constructivist philosophy, and Jamia decided that they should be sent to me. And the topic is revisiting TLM and professional development program to contextualize them from pedagogical and socio-cultural perspective of Urang tribe in Jharkhand. This is the qualitative study, friends. So see what this researcher has done. Only 3 research questions. Are the textbooks adequately designed to meet the educational need of the tribal children? Second research question, do the tribal children identify their way of life with the content of the textbook? Third research question, are the teachers in tribal areas well equipped to transact the content capability? So this researcher, what is doing, after stating the problem directly, the researcher thought it is better to formulate the research question and then objectives of the study. Another sample I would like to share with you, this is from your state only, majority of the people will be from the Punjab, Chandigarh. Teaching efficacy, knowledge and attitudes of pre-service and in-service teachers towards inclusive education. Again, here you will find that this is the research problem. and these are the objectives. The objectives and hypothesis are almost synchronous. What does it mean? It means for each objective, one hypothesis, and that too in terms of there is no significant introduction. But my question is, suppose if I write there is a significant introduction, or that there is a significant difference between mean or mean, what will happen? Why people write majority of their hypotheses in null form? And suppose if you have to convert the null hypothesis into alternative hypothesis, right, which you may call HO to H1 or HN to HA, right, what will happen? Another thesis again, evolving of teaching learning strategies in mathematics and CCE framework in constructivist paradigm. You know, this is the thesis which I think I deserve to evaluate, because my combination is of mathematics and constructivism, and so on. Now see here, see the freedom in the university, in different university, what she does. She says, statement of the problem, again, directly research questions. Time and again, I have raised this question, why do you write first the aims, then the objectives, then the hypothesis? Can't we start for our research work directly from the research questions? And that's why at Central University of Himachal Pradesh, Dharamshala, I said, no, nothing, we have nothing to do with simply the research question and then the hypothesis, if it is a quantitative, and if it is a qualitative, no need to write hypothesis, even start working that way. So see the research questions. How conceptual understanding of children in mathematics can be facilitated? What is the best way to assess students' mathematics understanding? And how do we assess students' co-scholastic abilities? So I have taken one from the south, one from the north, right? North from Delhi and Chandigarh. And this is the one from again south, right? Kunno district, influence of the school-based. And again, what you will find, here you will be surprised to say, hypothesis first and objective later, okay? And there is another one from now the Central India. This I have evaluated very recently from Indore, the developing teaching strategies on target adaptive behavior for children with moderate intellectual disability case study approach. It's a case study approach, and my MPhil research is completely case study and case profile. So here, what the researcher has done, statement of the problem, objective, and for each objective, right, because this is a case study, the researcher decided not to formulate, okay, any hypothesis. So see, developing teaching strategies, research problem states, developing teaching strategies on target adaptive behaviors for children with moderate intellectual disability. Now see, keeping this in mind, I'll definitely talk about, very practically that how research questions are formulated, but see the trend. The objective determined for present study were following. Number one, to identify the individuals with a moderate level of intellectual disability belonging to same group. This is the first thing that you need to do, very systematic. Second, to develop activity checklist on social and pre-vocational skills for selecting the individuals with a moderate intellectual disability. I mean, you need to have some criteria on the basis of which you can level someone, whether that person is a moderate intellectual disability or acute intellectual disability. The third one, to perform case studies on persons with a moderate intellectual disability selected through the developed activity checklist, right? Fourth, to study the classroom behavior of the individuals on whom case studies were performed for selecting the final sample for the study throughout. I'll not waste my time. Now, one research I'll take from my alma mater, that is University of Delhi. And this I have evaluated, but not from the Department of Education, but Department of Psychology. And the title is Revelation of Religion, Archaic and Archetypal Hierophany. Hierophany is a term that is used in psychology when you study, the mythological study, and these are the two types. Here you will be surprised to see my good friend Eric Soren. He only works in the area of mythology from the psychological point of view, and see general objectives and only one general objective, and that is to delineate the hierophany, the act of manifestation of the numinous infused by revelations from the archaic to evolved sacred realities, which are religious or archetypical in essence. You know, I have great interest in Eric Fromm's work, that is the conscious and unconscious mind. And now see, directly coming to the specific objectives they call to dissertate on revelation on the human soul in fairy tales, keeping this topic in mind, to discern revelation of divine providence, and because this is not a research problem, qualitative research is basically a research topic. The third one, to decode revelation in a vision and dream, granting religious revival, and to decipher revelation of redemption in paradoxes, no hypothesis. Now, my own study at my own student at Central University of Himachal Pradesh, Dharamshala, I myself and one professor from physics department was the co-supervisor, guiding inquiry and strategy for learning thermodynamic concepts from a microscopic perspective using computer simulation. And see, what she has done, both the students have adopted different approaches, and I give this freedom. Goals, then the objectives, and then the hypothesis. I didn't mind because she wanted to go that way. She was product of University of Punjab itself. Another student, you know, both were MSc Physics. One was conducting her PhD in Department of Physics, and another was in education. So Physics department and education department joined hand and see what is the research problem. Research problem states that enhancing students' conceptual understanding of solid state physics using physics education research strategy, PER. If you are a science student, you must be aware of this. Now, what she has done, she says, no, sir, because that department, you know, motivates only the research questions. So directly research questions, converting it to research objectives, and then she has done the study. I'm not going to state. Very recently, you know, here in university, my own university, one of my students has done study of epistemic beliefs of pre-service teachers. What she has done, she says, sir, let me first write the objectives of the study, and then I'll convert to the research questions. So objectives and research questions. And then this is what she has done. Now, two of my current students, they are working on two topics. Very quickly, I'll talk about that, and then I'll move on practical sessions, how to do that. The title, one of my research scholars' title is, because she is MSc Chemistry, but she's very much interested in humanizing the science education. And her title is Humanizing Epistemic and Pedagogic Discourses in Science Education. So she thought, why not I should write one objective, and for that, one or two research questions. She has adopted that approach. So one research objective is to discern the developmental trajectory of philosophy of humanism. And her research questions are, what is the meaning of philosophy of humanism, and how theory of humanism had shaped universe of human thinking in terms of logics, reasoning, argument, and aesthetics. You must be aware of that. These are the four dimensions which humanism talks about. Second, research objectives, to ascertain the relationship between philosophy of humanism and science in general, and science education in particular. So research questions are, on what basis philosophy of humanism does show reliance with science? Second, how to humanize science education from the perspective of philosophy of humanism? You know, humanism doesn't believe in any metaphysical reality, any God, any extraterrestrial. It believes only in logic. And as I said in the last slides, logic, reasoning, arguments, and aesthetics. Third objective was to dissertate journey. She is perhaps motivated by that PhD thesis from Delhi University. She must have read. I asked her to read that. To dissertate journey of epistemic and pedagogic discourses in science education. Now, what are the research questions? How does the post-Kuhnian models of the practice of science contributed in reshaping of epistemic discourses in science education? Next research question, on what basis philosophy of humanism does show this? And so I'm not right to repeat. These are the some, you know, another student, again, the qualitative study, he is a MA education student, deep interest in philosophy, but at the same time, he's highly influenced by Gardner's work, Multiple Intelligence. And you know, Gardner in his study has given a concept called existential intelligence, which he calls half intelligence. But I was very much disappointed why Gardner calls it half intelligence, why existential intelligence cannot be considered full intelligence. So what we have done, we have decided to do a study on this, and this Anshuman is doing this study, a study of existential intelligence in seeking one's own existence. Now, what are the objectives? He says, so first let me formulate 4 objectives and then the research questions. Not necessarily both are correlated. It could be the disjoint. First objective, to a certain individual's awareness about his or her existence. Second, to explore the role of existential, EXIN, we have coined a abbreviation of existential intelligence, to explore the role of existential intelligence in one's awareness about his or her existence. The third research objective, to explore the influence of existential intelligence in one's existence in terms of absurdity, existential fall, and authentic life. You know, these terminologies have been taken from Nietzsche's work, one of the great minds in the field of existentialism. And I am a big fan of him. Objective 4, to find out possible influence of existential intelligence on intellectual life. And see how he has formulated the research. Of course, we both were the co-partners in the journey of research. Your supervisor and you both are the co-partners in the journey of research. Is an individual aware about his or her existence? I mean, his awareness. Second, how does existential intelligence responsible to extract meaning for an individual from the absurd world? How does the existential intelligence help an individual to avoid existential fall? Does existential intelligence helps an individual to live authentically? What is the relationship status between existential intelligence and academic achievement? These are the research questions, friends. Now, directly, so what I have presented to you that in a year 3-4 thesis I evaluate, and I wanted to present you. I'm of the opinion that instead of writing aims, objectives, and hypotheses, this is my first argument, that please start your research with research questions. And if it is in quantitative paradigm or positivistic paradigm, then please do write hypothesis. And that hypothesis could be the null hypothesis, or it could be the alternative hypothesis. Or why not the positive hypothesis? I mean, the question of biasness in the positivism, I don't think it's so far relevant today, right? This is the first thing. Now, the question is how to do this. So suppose this is your first research question, okay? Research question is, are children who play video games more likely to be violent? Because Professor Kushindra has just told me that people from social sciences are also here. So it's a mix. 4 research questions I have formulated, and I'll show you why and how. Now see, why this researcher has formulated this research question. So suppose the researcher decides to work in the area of video games, okay? And the place I have taken, because this is
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Rohit. Voice is not audible.
सर जी मेरे ख्याल से नेटवर्क की कोई इशू आ गया, लगता है जी फोन करना पड़ेगा प्रगट जी जरा करना जी
मैं रिंग कर रहा हूं सर, मैं कॉल कर
हाँ जी ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨੈਟਵਰਕ ਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਸਰ
आई एम कॉलिंग सर, जस्ट अ मिनट.
ओके स्क्रीन शेयरिंग की बंद होगी सर. आ गए थे सर मेरे।
Okay, okay.
Sir, now it's audible.
Now it's audible.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what I'll have to do, I'll have to screen the share again, right?
Yeah.
Do that. Yeah, I can understand. So, right. So, can
Fine,
you?
sir. No, it's fine, sir. Please continue.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, suppose this researcher is, as I was talking about, he wants to study on video games, its effect on children in the setup of United States of America, and in last 10 years. It could be 201 to 211, it could be 210 to 220, one time. Now, these are the this, and now you have to formulate the research question. So keeping these four components in mind, see what will be your research question. I mean, I would have enjoyed had I been face to face and I would have asked you to guess and formulate your research questions, right? Now, I know there are some technology, but it is only one-way traffic. So now what this researcher will be doing, are children who play video games more likely to be violent? This is the first research question. Now, for this, see the developing research questions and why this, this researcher on the basis of this four context has developed that research question. Number one, are children who play video games more likely to be violent? Completely on the target. But suppose if you write, do video games contribute to bad behavior? You are close, but not, you have reached to the right research question. But when you say, what are the effects of video games on society? You know, this could be the aims, but this cannot be the research question. Okay, but if you ask, do video games contribute to bad behavior? It could be objective, but still it's not research question. Research question will be, are children, right, who play video games more likely to be violent? So keeping this, so what I have done, friends, I have showed you that there is a researcher, he wants to study on video games, and his sample, he wants to see the effect of video games on children, and the sample will be from United States of America, and he wants to see the correlation, the effect on violence and in last 10 years. So keeping this, suppose he has raised three questions in his mind. First question was, what are the effects of video games on society? Then still he is not closer to research question. It could be aims, it could not be research question. Second, do video games contribute to bad behavior? It could be objective, but it is not research question. Then what is a research question? When he formulates his question like this, are children who play video games more likely to be violent? Fine, friends, should I move ahead? Now, second example, suppose in social work department or sociology department, there is a researcher, he or she wants to work on the topic called divorce. Fine. Now, she wants to understand the effect of divorce on children, and the context is again United States of America. It could be India, it could be Brazil, it could be anything. Okay. And what event? Social development. Time again, suppose any 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, it is. Now, this is the context. On the basis of that, he or she has to formulate a research question. What will be the research question? Like, if he or she formulates research question like this, how will the aftermath of divorce affect humanity? No, it's not a research question. He or she has completely missed. Why? Because it is a too broad. What aspect and who is not reflecting in this question. Second, if the researcher says, what effect does divorce have on children? Yes, this is a close, but still it's not talking about the effect. So it's a close, but not on the target. So what will be a hit? What will be the target? If this researcher formulates his or her question like I state, how does divorce influence children's social development. Right, friends? Let me share with you the third. Suppose there is a person who is working in the area of maybe social work, sociology, even in education, to see on plastic bottles, and he or she wants to see its impact or effect on consumers, and particularly consumer behavior and its impact on environment. And the site will be the disposal site. So this disposal site could be anywhere in the world, not necessarily United States or the India or the Australia or Punjab. Any could be. It could be any disposal site from your mohalla event, right? And no time limit is there. Now this researcher has to formulate the question. And suppose he or she starts with, how does trash pollute the environment? Again, could be aims or objectives. This is not a research question, friends. Why? Because it is too broad. What kind of crash? This research question is not talking about. Second, what is the impact of bottled water on the environment? It's a very close to the research question, but still it is not a research question. Why? Because what aspect of bottled water is not talking about? And last, so that's why formulation of research question is a lot of struggle, friends. It demands a lot of discussion and deliberation, right? And a lot of readings as well. So what is the environmental impact of plastic water bottles? This is a very close to the research question, and it's a hit. So you can say it is a research question, right, friends? Suppose, let me take one example from education. And the topic is academic success. There is a researcher, he or she is interested to study in the area of academic success. Now, who are the persons? College freshman students or college first semester students or the university first semester exam students. Where, suppose high schools, it could be undergraduate institutions, it could be graduate institutions, anything. What event? A standardizing test. You know, in the US, what happens? That SAT score, it's a very popular. You know, they mostly enroll students on the basis of SAT scores. And you know, SAT score is a 1600 marks examination, okay? And even if you don't do anything, they will give you 400 marks. So real fight is after 800, above 600 almost. So 960 marks and 1600 marks. Anyway, so, and recent research, it could be the 2010 to today or 5 to today, anything else. Now, what this researcher does, he or she formulates a question like, what kind of students will do well in life? You know, this is a missed question. This is not a research question. Why? Because what type of success are you talking about? You are simply saying, will do well in life. What do you mean by will do well in life? Like academically, today what we are saying, you are doing very well in life, but financially, you are not doing so well. Socially, you are not doing so well. Politically, you are not doing so well, etc., etc. Suppose he or she reformulates this question. What characteristics determine whether or not students will succeed in college? You know, this is a close, but it needs to focus on one trait. You cannot take many traits together. So the beauty of the research question is a very, very specific and pinpointed. And you know, what is a research question? Research question is essentially a hypothesis asked in the form of a question. And that's why I'm of the opinion that first formulate research questions, start with the hypothesis. So suppose this researcher, in consultation with supervisor or the review of literature or anything else, reformulates the question, how good of a predictor is standardized testing for college academic success? Like, see, you compare the first research question, which is in green, with the red one. What do you notice? See, here, say, will do well in life. What do you mean by will do in life? Are you talking doing well? I mean, there are various layers, various sectors, right? But here it's a academic success. This research question is not going to focus on family success, personal success, professional success, or economic success. It's only talking about being a student's academic success. So how good of a predictor is standardized testing for college academic success? Suppose there is another one. Let me take example from alcohol abuse. This is rampant. And in Punjab, this is, there was a movie also on this, the drugs and the alcohols. And now it is becoming universal phenomena in India, almost all states. Like my family lives in Gurgaon, and from railway station to my residence, at least 15 alcohol shops are there. So suppose somebody is interested to study on alcohol abuse, on whom she wants to see the effect of alcohol abuse, undergraduate students or postgraduate students, maybe the researcher students also, because they get a lot of money today, so maybe. So what event impact at GPA? Okay, then where? It could be India, it could be Punjab, it could be Haryana, it could be US colleges, it could be Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University, it could be Patiala, it could be Guru Nanak Dev University, it could be anything else. But suppose you want to study for a long period, that is 20 years, 15 years, 30 years. Now this researcher has to formulate the research question and see what he or she has done. The first question, is alcohol harmful to young people? Again, it's not a research question. Why? What kind of harm are you talking about? And on whom you are talking about? What kind of harm and for whom this harm? Right? And that's why this is not a research question. Though this is a question, it could be closer to the aims or the broader objectives, but still it's not closer to, right, the research question. Some people say, sir, if we write objective and specific objectives, why not they are the research questions? I'll talk about that, friends. So, but then he or she again revises it. Supervisor is not happy. What effect, this question is now reformulated. What effect does alcohol have on college students? Now again, see, it is talking about effect, but this effect is not specific. So what type of effect are you talking about? So you'll have to write and reformulate this question, effect on GPA, okay, on total marks or total grades, okay. So does drinking alcohol in college impact a student's GPA? So some of you, like taking sample from Modi College, you can do this research. But your research question will be the green one, not the red one. Red one is a very broad, and the orange one is a closer, but it's not, and this is the one. So practically, I wanted to show you that how research questions are formulated, friends. Okay, I'm very sorry, I've already taken for 45 minutes. Similarly, there is another one, but I'm not going to discuss. I have to cut short because I would love to listen to Amit Kotz also, and I would like to finish it within 15 minutes. So the research questions, I think I'll be able to, now let me talk some practical measures. I'm not going to talk about the theoretical, that if I'm formulating research questions in quantitative paradigm of writing, but that's not correct word, in positivist paradigm of research, then what will be the nature of research questions? If I formulate the same research questions in post-positivist or critical paradigm or constructivist paradigm or interpretivist paradigm of research, what will be the nature of the research questions? It will vary, friends. It will not remain same. Within one paradigm, if your framework, there are 4 frameworks in qualitative research, and all framework, advocates different kind of research questions, but the time doesn't permit to talk about all these, but some practical suggestions for today. We have only 10 minutes left, friend. So what I'm going to share with you about the research questions, objectives, and hypotheses in very brief. By 5 o'clock sharp, I would like to complete it. All research should start with one or more research questions. So the research question seeks to address the general point of what am I proposing to do? And as I said earlier, that for me, a research question is essentially a hypothesis asked in the form of a question or in the form of, then you can also talk about research hypothesis, then a statistical research question, statistical hypothesis. I mean, these are all different things. Time doesn't permit to talk about that. So this is the first thing. Second, it sets out a problem that can be challenged, that can be examined, and that can be analyzed in a logical and systematic manner. If you really want to develop any argument which is logical and valid, you'll have to raise in terms of questions. Third, superficially, this may seem like a simple task. I showed you this is not a simple task. Once you, decide your research problem, each aims required to be converted into objectives and objected into research questions. For one question, you'll have to struggle at least 4 to 5 days. And that's why I'm saying, superficially, this may seem like a simple task, but the construction of a well-defined research questions can have a big impact on the design of a research proposal. It enhances chances of yourself for getting PhD registered, done, or securing the funding, whatever. This research proposal is for the PhD registration or the funding or the ICSSR fellowship. So the research question needs to be focused, relating to a specific study in a defined situation, friends. And that's why I presented that. So in education, the research questions should have an educational context. Though we people claim that all contexts are educational contexts, to a great extent, right, but to some extent that may or may not be correct. It depends on the perspective. Second, the starting point for the research question comes from a detailed knowledge of the researcher, what he or she has learned from studying the literature, and what gaps or problems have been identified that may be solved by the research to be undertaken. And that's why I'm of the firm opinion, friends, that if you're not a good reader, if you're not a voracious reader, if you're not a keen reader, you can never become a good researcher. And that's why this is happening today. People are dictating, either people are carbon copying the things, the methodology, or just they are falling in the, I call it, bad trap. Because sound theoretical understanding, sound methodological understanding, sound epistemological, ontological, and axiological understandings are not there. And more importantly, rhetoric is completely missing from our educational research discourses, friends. Hardly any syllabus I have seen in India which talks about the rhetoric in research. So one question that the researcher should ask himself or herself is, will my research question avoid the response of, so what? Okay, now, so there are a number of criteria that may be used to help in formulating a research question in education. I was listening to some doctors, medical practitioners recently. I very much like that. So my nephew, who is a head of department in nephrology in pediatric department here only in Apollo, and he was presenting his research, and he requested me, Chacha, can you see my presentation and give me some constructive feedback. I mean, I could not understand. 90% of the things I could not understand, but at least I could understand how the people present. How do the people correlate? How systematic and authentic they are in their research. Why do we go after that? Once you formulate the research problem, now you have to write the research synopsis. Like physics people, chemistry people, engineering people, and hardcore science people, they don't develop any research proposal. So of these, so there are a number of criteria that may be used to help in formulating a research questions in the field of education. I'm not going to talk about the conventional criteria, friend. I'll talk about the two criteria. One, that is called PICOT, Pequot Approach. What is this Pequot Approach? Pequot Approach is one of the most widely used. Using this approach, the research questions should be formulated in terms of number one, population to be studied, interventions of interest, comparator for the intervention, outcome that will be assessed, and the time frame over which, like you are doing horizontal study or the longitudinal study, and you want to see the effect, right? And that's why this is the Pequot model. So you'll have to formulate your research questions in terms of population to be studied, in terms of intervention of interest, in terms of comparator for the intervention, in terms of outcome that will be assessed, and time frame. I'm sorry, friends, time doesn't permit. Otherwise, I would have loved to elaborate this. So, but I would like to remind you here, not all research involves intervention, and so the abbreviations, indicator, and control may be more appropriate in these circumstances. You'll have to choose. Once the research question has been framed in line with the PICOT or PIC or COT or OT or IC, it depends. It will vary from research to research, or the paradigm to paradigm, approach to approach, and the research framework to framework. What you need to do? You need to ask whether the research questions can be translated into proposal that meets the finer criteria. What is this finer criteria? I'll talk about FINER. This means assessing whether the resulting project will be, number one, feasible to perform. Number two, interesting for the researcher and the user. Third, novel in the local or wider context. Fourth, ethical to undertake. Like in South Africa, we have proposed to an international project. They had the fund. One of my friends from UNICEF, he said, can you collaborate? And it's almost 1 month every day he's appearing before the committee, and he has to give an ethical clearance. Every university has an ethical clearance committee. Like, you cannot ask any students any question. And if you ask any reporting, you'll have to take ethical clearance from me. So, but more important is relevant to educational practice. And this is called the FINER model, friends. Okay. So this FINER criteria is this in front of you. First, feasible to perform. I always advise, don't take any topic. Feasibility is the key. If it's a funded one, the criteria of feasibility is different one. If it is not funded one, right, it is at the MPhil and PhD level, the feasibility criteria is completely different. Second, interesting for the researcher and the user. The third, novel in the local or wider context. And the fourth one is ethical to undertake, and last, relevant to educational practice. I'm not saying the FINER criteria is going to stop there. There could be something else. So you please come out with your understanding and you add something else. I'll be happy to, extend it. Like I would like to share, initially I used to talk about the 5E model of lesson plan development, or 5E model of teaching in constructivism. And then there is a guy, he came out with the 7 model, maybe second the 9, the 11, as in the case of multiple intelligence. No more talk about this single entity as an intelligence. If you talk about intelligence, you talk about a spiritual intelligence, emotional quotient, social quotient, and cultural quotient, etc., friends. So now let me talk about the hypothesis. So well thought out and focused question. I'm not going in detail, the null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, and then whether statistical hypothesis, but very simple advice to you. A well thought out and focused research questions leads directly into one or more hypotheses. So one research question not necessarily will have one hypothesis, as it happens in educational research and social sciences. One objective, one hypothesis. It could have been multiple ones. What predictions can the researcher anticipate will arise as a consequence answering the research questions and testing the hypothesis, that is the predictions, because justification for the research, friends. So hypotheses are much more than hunches or guesses. Like Eric, what's the name? Eric Rogers. Eric Rogers wrote that, what is a hypothesis? Hypothesis is a tentative guess and the good hunches. But no, it's not. Then it was extended by Kerlinger. Kerlinger says, no. It's not a merely guess, or not just a merely hunches. It's the conjectural statement of the relation between 2 or more than 2 variables, right? And then it was again, very pinpointed by another writer, Creswell, particularly. And Creswell says, no, it is an expected relationship. Why do you say null hypothesis? That's what I'm saying. Why can't I expect something? So expected relationship between an independent and dependent variables. when Creswell started writing in the area of post-positivist paradigm of research. People read Creswell, but I'll advise you, yes, you read preliminary Bogdan-Becklin and Creswell, but you read Q.A. Patton, you read Guva. I'll give you different references, right? They have their foundation in scientific knowledge and principles backed up by their experience and vision of the researcher friends, because they have done the research in the field. This morning I was talking about, if you're going to do, ethnographic research or interpretive research, then very good work done by Professor Meenakshi Thapan. She was professor of sociology primarily, but she did serve in the Department of Education, Life at School. And to start Life at a School project at the Rishi Valley in Banaras, you know what she did? For 2 years, she studied J. Krishnamurti. You read the preface of that book, you'll be thrilled. Well, friends, so strong hypotheses are needed. Why I'm saying this? Because it will provide insight into the research question, and they are testable and measurable by the proposed experiments, if it is experimental research. And primarily for experimental research, you should design your research hypotheses. This is my opinion. Are capable of being challenged and addressed by others using a different approach. Yes, that is going to happen. As I said, different paradigm require different research questions and research hypotheses. Different research framework require different, right? So I'll stop here about this research hypothesis. Very briefly, I'll talk about objectives. In simple terms, the objectives of the research proposal are to test the hypothesis that have been developed. But again, this is a contested one. Therefore, there should be one objective for each hypothesis, right? But if you have a research question, not necessarily the multiple one, right? So I'll not go into detail. I'll share this understanding with you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Khushvinder, giving an opportunity to be associated with this. I would like to stop here because I think I have completed my time. And as others are eager, I'm also eager to listen to Professor Amit Kotz. It's over to Dr. Parvez and Professor Khushvinder. Dr. Parvez, can you hear me? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pargat, are you online?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, over
Hello.
to you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, it was a very informative session. And after listening this very informative session, all the participants of this webinar will try to self-analyze the work they have completed till date and the work they are presently doing or they will undertake in future. Sir, it was really a wonderful session. You have beautifully explained the research questions, the research objectives, the Pequot model. It was really wonderful, sir. Sir, we are really thankful for this wonderful session. We will be looking forward for more sessions in future too, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you very much. So coming to the next session, another name which is very popular name in Punjab region or in the field of research across the nation. I am talking about Dr. Amit Kotz, Dean, Faculty of Education, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. As I have said in starting that, today you will get an experience from two deans. One example is already shown to you people, how a dean can change the structure, how a dean can make changes at grassroots level. So my next request will be to Professor Amit Kotz. Sir is Head Department of Education and serving Dean Faculty of Education, JNDU Amritsar. Sir has 25 years of experience of teaching in university and colleges, both undergraduate and postgraduate level. He has teaching experience in areas of research methodology, educational evaluation, pedagogy, and educational technology. He had served as principal in Postgraduate College of Education for more than 11 years. His research focus on educational development, ICT-based pedagogy, and various dimensions of teacher education. He has mentioned one postdoctoral research sponsored by ISSR, 16 doctoral researchers, and has authored and co-authored over 75 research papers. I would like to again quote the 75 quality research papers, 14 books and chapters, and 2 edited books. He has presented paper and participated in more than 90 conferences at national and international level. He has delivered more than 85 keynote addresses in various workshops at national and international level. Then Sir is also very much practitioner in the field of teaching and research, and Sir is doing a wonderful work in Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar, and we are seeing the major changes in the field of research and teaching under the headship of Dr. Amit Kaudse. So now I invite our worthy Sir, Dr. Amit Kaudse, to present a beautiful session before all the participants. Thank you, sir. Please, you can share your screen, sir. Over to Dr. Amit Kaudse.
Thank you, Dr. Pargat Gacha. And thanks to Dr. Khushwinder also for arranging this program, and very relevant and very intensive program under the domain of Council for Teacher Education, which is very close to my heart. Not as an organization, sometimes through a person who was leading into this organization, Dr. D.R. Rich. We learned a lot from him in terms of teaching learning process. Probably the kind of missionary zeal he had for teaching, the way he used to involve students with him, that was something very different, and the kind of charismatic leadership he had to take people along with them. You know, it was an organization which was known by his name and his acts. He extended this organization not only to different states of the country, but different parts of the world as well. Today we remember him with a lot of passion and most of enthusiasm which he infused into this organization. One couplet which he used to share with me time and again. I like to start with him because I think this organization who owes a lot for Dr. D.R. Rich, we must remember him on this day when we are, I think, under this CTE. This is the first online webinar, I suppose, Dr. Khushwinder, isn't it? I think this is the first webinar.
Sir, it is the second one. Earlier one international was organized under the leadership of Dr. Khushwinder.
Yeah, you know, Dr. D.R. Rich used to say, "वो हिलागर हैं." वो हिलागर means बहानेबाज. वो हिलागर हैं जो मजबूरियां शुमार करें, जो कहीं ना कहीं जो मुश्किलें हैं उनको करें. वो हिलागर हैं जो मजबूरियां शुमार करें. चिराग हमने जलाए हैं हवा के होते हुए. In spite of a lot of difficulties in COVID-19, teaching community has really come out with a lot of initiatives to connect with their students. And this is one initiative, because whenever we talk of education, we always think that it has not come out as a discipline. There are very few seriously, engaging people who are working for the cause of education and developing education as a discipline. Today, when I have been asked to talk on how to prepare a research proposal, I like to start with a kind of context in which the research paper or research proposal has to be conceptualized. And there could be two ways of thinking on research proposal, or developing a research proposal. One is from the point of view of developing knowledge in a particular discipline, which Dr. Arvind also talked about, and he tried to develop the whole concept of developing questions and objectives and hypotheses from a philosophical point of view. Probably this is what is required these days. See, as a teacher or as a researcher, when I'm working in a particular field of study, I need to understand the context in which I'm studying, in which I'm teaching. Many times what happens is, when we start with some kind of project or some kind of research degree program, we initially go through some research literature which is related to some of my interest areas and try to fit in certain variables as independent, some dependent, and try to formulate a problem. Now, this is what's happening in majority of the research works, and that is why one of the reasons that we are not developing as a discipline, because there is no consistent approach to accumulate subject matter, subject knowledge of a particular discipline. I'm talking about education. I'm not talking about other disciplines right now. So in any discipline, there has to be a consistent and very serious approach to develop the content, develop facts, develop principles, develop theories, develop phenomena. So unless we have that context in our mind, and the context is not limited from the point of view of a researcher, that he has to obtain a degree, or a supervisor that he has to guide few theses for some kind of promotion. If that is the narrower vision for pursuing PhD, probably, or pursuing any research work, probably we end up nowhere. And anything which Dr. Jha also talked about, he talked about reading more and trying to understand things and then explore further. And when you're talking about understanding what is already existing, so you have to really get into the contextual understanding of the phenomena which you want to explore, because no phenomena is to be studied into a isolated fact. There is a phenomena, there are certain variables working in it, and how those different variables, they are related to one another to cause a phenomena. This is one isolated picture in the whole process of research. But unless we see that phenomena from a wider context, and that context has to be, those contexts could be from two angles. One is that we have an intention to grow knowledge. There are three functions of research. One is that, when we add something new into the existing corpus of knowledge, or we try to fill the gaps, or we try to give some new interpretations to the existing phenomena. So all these things, they lead to one aspect very prominently, that as a researcher, when I start doing my work, so fundamental thing which I need to understand is that what already exists into that area in which I want to enter as a researcher. So there has to be a lot of reading about it, that what is the consensus knowledge base which is already available in the area in which I want to explore. One. Second is, when we are going through that exploration, reading, then I try to find out what are the gaps into it. And if I am able to find out that gap, probably I try to explore that gap and try to fill that. So unless I don't have that, probably I'm not at the right place to start with the research, so I must delay it. So this is one thing which I must understand as a researcher. Second thing, which is also a part of my deliberation today. When you said that you have to prepare a proposal for funding. So from funding point of view, there have to be two different contexts. One context would be that I have to conduct research into my interest area. Now, if I have to explore, like I'm very passionate about some particular area, for example, maybe usage of ICT and its effect on society, maybe constructivism, maybe anthropology, maybe some landforms kind of research into different landforms. So I have my specified area of research, and I'm interested to pursue my interest area in research only. This is one way of looking at when I'm preparing a proposal for some funding. And second is that once I have some interest area and I prepare a proposal, but that time I have to see which organization can fund me into that area, because different funding agencies, they have different mandate. Like somebody would fund in geography, somebody would fund in teacher education, somebody would fund into economy. So different funding agencies, they have got different priorities. So in that context, if I'm committed to a particular area of research, then I have to see which funding agency can has the same mandate that is of my interest. This is one way of looking at preparing proposals for funding. And second is that I trace out different funding agencies, maybe CSIR, maybe ICSSR, maybe UGC, or maybe some foreign, maybe UNESCO or something like that. So once I say that these are 10 funding agencies, and then I try to see what are the priority areas of those funding agencies, because if they have to fund you for doing some research, they must be having some interest. So you have to work into their interest areas and then try to see what are their priority areas, and then always try to understand what kind of proposals do they expect you to write, because every funding agencies, they have got different parameters of writing a research proposal. But today, in this program, I'd like to share with you some common, steps through which, we have to write a proposal. So one thing which we need to understand as a researcher, that, we need to understand what research is. And, when I'm saying what research is, that means, yeah. When I'm saying that, what research is, so it is conceptualized differently by different people. Some people conceive it as, already we have some information from research and we are reinvestigating it. People take it this way also. Some people mistakenly, they say that, there is, you gather some information, you document it, and then you just try to analyze that, analysis. Now, this is what is something wrong with the basic conceptualization of research. That this is not only gathering information and documenting and summarizing something. Every piece of research must have some wider objectives. Until unless, if, for example, I am a teacher, if I'm confronting some problems, I must try to solve those problems. As a researcher in a particular area, I try to see some gaps in the existing knowledge. I try to, fill those gaps. I try to say that, there are certain new areas, which are opening up in a particular area. So I want to develop something new into that area. So we should not take research as gathering information or documenting facts and analyzing things, but it is a process of collecting and analyzing and interpreting data in order to understand a phenomena. Now, this is very important. When I said earlier also, phenomena or developing a theory. See, when you try to give answer to some problem, for example, academic success. Academic success is one area, which I'm interested into as a person of education. When I say academic success, it means what are the different factors which contribute to academic success? What are the different variables which make me feel that if these situations exist in a particular environment, educational environment, academic success would reduce. So my target is to explain academic success. Now, when I'm trying to explain academic success and trying to see which different variables are interrelated in what way that it leads to academic success. So I'm trying to develop an area of interest. So once I have that area into my mind, and then I try to see that, in a particular research work, what different variables I want to study in what way. So one thing which is very fundamental for preparing a research proposal is that I have to identify an area of investigation which must be linked with either my interest, one. Number two, it must correlate or synchronize with some kind of fundamental, fundamental issues of research into my subject area. For example, whether this piece of knowledge, which I want to resolve, I want to find, is going to lead to some adding into the existing knowledge, or filling the gaps into the existing knowledge, or giving new interpretation to existing concepts. So my first step is that how my research would be relevant for the field in which I am working. How my research would be relevant to different stakeholders of my research. Unless I address to these issues, probably I'm not the right person, or I'm not at the right stage to initiate the process of research in a particular area. So the context and the framework of research is very important to start with writing of any research proposal for funding agency or for any research degree. Now, once I am into the process of finalizing my research area, thereafter comes another issue which is very important. That is, how do I conceptualize things? What are the research questions which Dr. Jha just spoke? How do I frame research questions? How do I formulate objectives? How do I formulate hypotheses? Now, all these things, when I formulate an area of research, then I try to state the research problem, and out of that statement, I try to formulate objectives, I try to formulate hypotheses. Now, one thing which is very interesting, and which every researcher in the field of different aspects of education and different other fields have to understand, that research, when we define research, we say it's a systematic study. It's a study which is objectively handled. This is a process which try to generalize the findings which have come through the process of analyzing data on a sample, and we are able to systematically generalize on population, a bigger population. So a systematic process is very important, and when we say systematic, it means your title of this of the research should be elaborated when we are stating the problem. So statement of the problem should try to develop around the context in which that topic has evolved, and then that title, like from that title or from that statement of the problem, should objectives flow, and from those objectives hypothesis should flow. So that makes it more systematic and more objective, and we are more focused on the solution of a problem through a process of research. So this is the second aspect which all researchers should try to make use of. When you are formulating a research proposal, you must have an identified area. That area could have relevance for the development of knowledge in your domain or in your discipline. Second is that area, if you are thinking of getting funding for it, you must see to it that which organization has the priority area of your topic, of your area, for their funding purposes, or you try to formulate a proposal as per the priorities of different funding agencies. So that is your concern, how you want to go about it. But once you identify the area, you try to see, how do you state it, how do you contextualize it, how do you develop the framework for it, and then developing objectives and hypotheses. One more issue which is very important, which comes as a process to formulate a problem, that is reviewing the literature, reviewing of the literature. Many times, as Dr. Jha was also, taking certain illustrations from the thesis which he has reviewed from different universities. if you go through the thesis of different universities as far as review is concerned, you will find different formats for it. Many times you will find that when the variables are discussed, along with the variables, they try to integrate research along with it. So you are developing the variable also, and while developing variable, you are trying to state the different findings or different researches which already have been, which already have taken place in that particular area. This is one way. Second is that we have a separate chapter for it, review of literature. But in both situations, what I found many times, it is not reviewing anything. So what's happening is that suppose you are studying teacher effectiveness in context of experience of a teacher, or in terms of the qualification of a teacher, or in terms of exposure of a teacher. And then you try to find out certain researches how experience of a teacher is related to teacher effectiveness, or how his qualification is related to teacher effectiveness, or how his exposure is related to, and you are stating such and such person in such and such area found out such and such relationship, another person. So once you are stating it, and then you start discussing the second variable. Now in this situation you will find one thing which is prominent, that where is the review and what review aims at. You are stating the problems, you are stating the previous researches, but what has really come out of that? That is something which is of interest to a researcher. As a researcher, you must be interested that what already exists in the area of research which you are carrying out. Now, that analysis is not done. Most of the time, that analysis is missing in the thesis. And until unless that analysis is there as a part of your development of proposal, probably you are missing for the relevance of your work in terms of your academic worth of that work. Academic worth means you are adding something new, you are filling the gaps, or you are giving new interpretations. Now, all these three objectives could be evolved or could be identified only when you make a systematic review of the previous researches. And that is the area when you can identify gaps, or you can identify a systematic way of ascertaining what quantum or what aspects of knowledge in a particular field are established. So that is the place from where you have to take your research further. Now, for developing any research proposal, you need to develop the variable in a particular context. You have to, analyze the title of your research in a particular framework or in a particular context, and then you try to establish why this work is worth doing in the context of academic worth. Not only academic worth, but for like how it is going to be beneficial for policy making, how it will be beneficial for practitioners, how it will be beneficial for different stakeholders who are interested into that particular area. So this is something a missing area which many of the theses they reflect on, and is very important. And third thing, which is again a very important aspect of preparation of research proposal, and that is if you identify a particular area and you identify a particular title for investigation, which research design or which research method would be most appropriate for solving that problem. We need not start with with this focus that I have to conduct a qualitative research, or I have to conduct a quantitative research, or I have to go for a mixed method. No, what is more important is what area or what are the problems you face as a researcher, or what area you want to work. What is the need of a particular area in which you are working? So that problem has to be very specific, and thereafter you should think that to solve this problem, what method would be most appropriate. Now, this aspect, unless as a researcher, you don't think this way, rather than thinking about the method first and then going about, which topic you are going to take and how you are going to set your, your variable as independent or dependent or intervening, what you have to control. You are not to think these things initially. What you have to do is you have to think about, the problem in the context of a framework, philosophical background, from the context of the rationale of the work, and then you should think about what approach you have to study. If you think that this problem can be sorted out through quantitative research, it can be more objectively handled. We can quantify the variables in a better way. The nature of variables are such that those could be identified, those could be quantified. Then of course you should go for quantitative research. But if you think that this investigation is not about quantification, I have very few people, for example, if I'm looking for some learning disability and I have got some very typical peculiar cases around me, and I want to investigate and try to have an understanding of different learning difficulties through these few people, I like to go for a case study. But if I am trying to understand a global phenomena, for example, initially also I gave you an example of teacher effectiveness. If I just want to know how and what factors can affect a teacher to be more effective, and in what context, like if it is an online setup, probably this, in online setup, what kind of factors they can make a teacher effective. In an offline setup, what are the different factors which can make a teacher effective. So if this is the kind of scenario, if I'm interested into a global picture about a phenomena, probably quantitative research would be more effective. So I need to, for writing a proposal, I need to have an understanding of different approaches to research. Those could be quantitative research, those could be qualitative research, there could be mixed method research, right? So this is another aspect which is needed for a researcher to understand as far as writing a proposal is concerned. You have descriptive researches, you have experimental researches, you have causal comparative research, you have correlational research methods, developmental, all these kind of things. Now, what we did, we identified a problem area, we review and evaluate literature from different contexts. We looked at the issues of ethics and culture. Then we talked about research questions or hypotheses, which Professor Jha has already elaborated. Now, 7th and 8th step is select research approach and decide measures. This is what I was telling you. Are we going to study the effects of something? For example, if I'm looking for some futuristic aspects, if I'm interested to know how blended learning can affect student learning and student engagement, or development of attitudes, or development of competencies, or development of knowledge. So in that context, probably I have to move towards experimental research. So I'm on the basis of some intervention, I'm trying to see whether that intervention is going to yield desirable results or not. So if this is the kind of research, of course I have to move to experimental research. And experimental research also, in keeping in view different situations, we can follow experimental designs, we can follow quasi-experimental designs, we can go for pre-experimental designs. It depends, what are the situations in which we have to work. So all those kind of things, the situations, am I in a position to randomize things? I can go for experimental designs. If I cannot go for randomized designs, if I can't select my sample through random methods, probably I can go for what you call that, quasi-experimental designs. And if I'm not in a position to equate the groups, probably I'll go for pre-experimental designs. So which design is very good in what situation is one thing, but what are the feasibility areas? If in a situation I'm not in a position to randomize, how good experimental methods are for analysis purpose, I will not be able to go for that. Then I have to adopt some quasi-experimental designs only. So this understanding for writing a proposal, a deep understanding of research designs and research methods is a must for developing a proposal. And thereafter comes a very relevant and important aspect, selection of the sample. The review of existing, thesis or existing, research work which is carried out by many of us, you will find that, in most of the theses, you will find a heading under which you explain the sample. And, sometimes there are 2-3 questions which sometimes are there in the mind of a evaluator. Sample from what? There are 2 concepts in sampling. One concept is population and second is sample. Now, sample and population both are so well connected from the point of view, at least research, meaning thereby, when we define sample, we say sample is a small representative of the population. So when you say the sample has to be decided, it means there has to be a population. Unless you specify population, you cannot think of deriving sample out of it. So one thing which as a researcher you need to understand is, when you are writing a proposal, you need to identify and specify population. Until you specify population, you will not be able to select which sampling design would be most appropriate to select most appropriate sample. Now, when I'm saying this, it means from the point of view of research, why population is very important for selecting sample, not only to make it representative, but the wider interest is that, once you have the sample, once you select a sample, the finding of the sample, finding which you reach on the basis of collection of data from the sample, would be ultimately generalized on the population. And that is why you say that sample has to be representative of the population. So the finding which you are, the findings which are coming out of the process of your research, that finding has to be ultimately aiming at the population, meaning thereby you are trying to explain the behavior of population on the basis of the finding on the behavior of sample. So you study the behavior of sample and then you generalize that behavior on the behavior of population. For example, if you are working on teacher effectiveness of teachers of India, social science teachers of India. Now, if India is the population, then you have to ensure that the kind of diversity of teachers you have across the country, they all have to be represented in your sample. Then only you will be able to generalize it on the population. So one very interesting aspect and very relevant aspect for developing a proposal is that you need to specify population, and then you have to specify the sampling design through which you try to make a case that, if I follow this, sampling design, that will ensure that the whole population is represented in your sample. Now, this procedure has to be specified in your research proposal. And another thing, many times we are, into our thought process when we evaluate thesis or any research proposal, that is, when you say that you have to select, you have taken 1,000 as a sample or 500 as a sample, how this 500 came? How did you make a conclusion that this 500 is the true and representative of the population? Now, this sample size, how did you reach to a particular sample size? That specification has to be done in a proposal, because that justifies that you are in a position to you have taken that kind of appropriate sample appropriate and representative sample which can really make prediction on the behavior of the population. So these two things are very important from the point of view of writing a research proposal, and thereafter collection and coding the data. See, whenever you want to investigate anything, research tools are very important. When I'm saying research tools, that means, you know, if you are doing some research on some human characteristics, for example, academic success. Now, how do you define academic success? For a person, academic success could be, you know, something which has come out as an outcome of a achievement test. Somebody says, no, academic success doesn't mean this. Academic success means somebody who is able to communicate effectively, somebody who is very creative, somebody who is very good in problem solving, somebody who is good in decision making, somebody who is good in writing skills. You know, so there could be different parameters of academic success. Similarly, you know, somebody who's working in the field of economics of education may come out with different kind of dimension of effectiveness or success. He says somebody who's spending, say, 30 lakhs in an institution, and he has only 300 students, and then what kind of learning parameters he is able to achieve, and the other system is spending around 5 lakhs on say 2,000 children and are coming out with some kind of academic success. So your effectiveness is not absolute. So ultimately you have to see how much has been spent on a particular system to evolve some kind of academic success. So you know, different variables could be defined differently. So one important aspect when you are writing a research proposal, which makes the research proposal very effective, is that the variables which you are taking, you know, the variables which you are studying in a particular investigation, you as a researcher is very clear about those variables. So meaning thereby you are operationally defining them. And when you are operationally defining, then you have to see whether on the basis of this operational definition, are you able to get some prepared questionnaire, or you don't have a prepared questionnaire. So now here, what normally happens and what it should be to make a good research proposal and to make a good research work is an issue to understand. And that issue is that you will not identify the tools first and then try to select the problem, which normally we do. You know, when I'm investigating the effect of intelligence, then I have to see to it what intelligence means to me. Somebody could say intelligence means verbal fluency. Somebody would say the person who can abstractly think is more intelligent. Somebody would say that, you know, the person who is getting more marks is more intelligent. So you can conceptualize. Somebody would say multiple intelligences. Somebody would say the person who has the ability to think differently in different situations is more intelligent. So it is up to you, you know, when you are when you are identifying a particular research problem, that time you have some conceptualization of that phenomena, and under that phenomena you have some conceptualization of operationalization of that variable. So if you are clear about that operationalization of your variable, and then you try to see that on the basis of that operationalization, are there some tools already available who are standardized? If yes, you may take with some kind of justification that, you know, this is my operationalization, this is how I thought about this variable, and this thinking is synchronizing with this tool, already existing tool. But if you don't have that tool, then it's always better to construct that tool on the basis of the operationalization of your variable. Then only probably you'll be able to hit the cause of your problem. Otherwise, you know, there will be lack of systematization in your research work. And if there is lack of systematization of your research work, planning of your research work, probably you'll not be able to develop a good proposal for your investigation. So one aspect which is very important in proposing a research is that you operationalize your variables, and on the basis of that operationalization, you ensure that that variable is truly depicted through the tool which you have used for collecting data. Because when you are collecting data, you conceptualize a variable in a way, and the tool is testing something else, then probably you are not justifying the research which you are doing. So anything which you conceptualize, your research tool should measure that only. You have to ensure whether you select some available standardized tool, or you develop and then standardize that tool and then make use of that tool for collecting data for your research. So this is another aspect. And then comes data analysis. Once you have the data with you, that data has to be scored and that data has to be analyzed. Now, here there are 2-3 things which are important from the point of view of data analysis. One is, what are your objectives, and on the basis of your objectives, what type of hypothesis you have formulated. And those hypotheses could be null hypothesis also, and those could be research hypothesis also, as Dr. Jha also talked about it. But we have to be very clear about that, whether we are proposing a null hypothesis or we are proposing a research hypothesis on the basis of a review of related literature. If my review is consistent, about certain findings, probably I can go for a research hypothesis, and I would take only one direction. Meaning thereby, if I say that experience of a teacher definitely leads to teacher effectiveness, so in this situation I will ignore the possibility of another hypothesis that what do you call that, the experience of the teacher will not lead to lack of teacher effectiveness. So I am very clear that my experience is going to lead to a better teacher effectiveness. So in that case, if the study previous studies, they are consistent in their findings, so I take a directional, and once I take a directional, then I have to go for one-tail test. So my parameters of evaluating whether my hypothesis is significant or not has to be whether my research hypothesis is directional. If it is directional, then I'm going to go for one-tail test, and if I'm going for a null hypothesis, like I'm not clear, the findings are contradictory, then I have to go for null hypothesis. I'm very clear that the possibility could be this way also and that way also. In those situations, I go for null hypothesis. So we have a problem, and on the basis of that problem, we flow, like the objectives are flowing from the statement of my problem, and on the basis of those objectives, to test whether if there is an objective, on the basis of that objective, I try to develop a hypothesis which will definitely test or attain, or will see to it that my objective is achieved or not. So that is the link. And once I have a hypothesis, then I have to decide then how that hypothesis, through which research design and through which statistical technique that hypothesis could be tested. So when I am coming to the data analysis, now that data analysis, the techniques of data analysis have to be conceptualized from the point of view of the research design and the hypothesis. Hypothesis should be tested through the research design, and research design should be correlated with the kind of statistical technique I am following. So with all this discussion, one thing which I am trying to communicate to all the participants here, that when you're preparing a research proposal, one thing which has to be clear, that your context, you should be very clear that are you doing an academic program, academic degree? Number one. If this research is for academic degree, then the objectives are very clear. One objective is that you want to add to the discipline. You want to fill the gaps in the existing disciplinary knowledge, or you want to reflect on the existing concepts. And if those concepts are evolving with time, with change of technology, with change of social norms, yes, then this is one aspect of research, an academic degree. And second aspect, in the academic degree only, whether this research is somehow helping to different stakeholders, policymakers, practitioners. So this is one aspect under which you have to formulate a problem. And a second context is whether you are looking for some funding. If you're looking for some funding, then you have to see to it that what are the priority areas of the funder, because the funding agency will fund only in their priority areas. They have their own mandate. So this is the starting point from where you have to start conceptualizing on the title on which you want to work. So problem area has to be identified from that context. Second is that you have to develop a philosophical and contextual background to that research work through the process of research review. So that research review has to be very, very, very stringent, very, very analytical, so that you try to derive some meaning out of it. It is not stating of the previous researches, but it is basically deriving some analysis out of it, some seasoning out of it. And then you get into the formulation of objectives, hypotheses, research questions, as is your thought process, or as is the requirement of the study. And on the basis of that, you formulate or you take a decision on the research approach or the research methods. Those could be quantitative or qualitative. Those could be descriptive. Like if I want to explain this phenomena, which is already working, so I'm going for descriptive research. If I'm interested to predict something, I'll be taking up experimental research. If I am trying to get some deep meaning out of some individual phenomena, I may go for some case study or some qualitative researches. And once I decide that, then I have to go for some selection of data in which population has to be identified first. And once you identify the population, then on the basis of the sampling designs, you ensure that the sample you select is the most appropriate and representative of the total population. And then you take a decision on the sample size, which will be sample size should be appropriate, so that you are able to make some kind of generalizations on the population. And thereafter you collect data through standardized tools. And here I gave you a word of caution that tools should not come first. Your ideas, your problem should come first. Out of that problem, you identify the variables, you conceptualize those variables, and after conceptualizing those variables, you operationalize those variables. And once you operationalize, you try to see whether you have the relevant tools available for that variable or not. If not, then you have to go for the development of some tool which is most appropriate for solving your problem. And then you collect data. And during the process of collection data, here you must write the procedure of data collection, which is very important. Unless you specify everything. See, when your proposal is evaluated either by a RDC, Research Degree Committee, or by some funding agency, remember that you are not there. Sometimes in academic programs, student is supposed to present, but when funding agencies they invite proposals, initially they scrutinize it, and thereafter under scrutiny, if you are qualified, then they ask you to come and present your proposal. So in first stage, your scrutiny is done. In that scrutiny, you are not there, and if you are not there, then your proposal should speak of itself. So that time you should be very particular, how you are going to collect data to ensure that data is collected objectively. and then you must justify, you must select and justify the kind of techniques for data analysis which you are using. There are different techniques for quantitative data, and there are different techniques for qualitative data. So you can take a call on this, which data collection, which data analysis techniques are to be used, and thereafter, you chapterize. When you are writing a proposal, you have to tell that under what headings you are going to make the research report. Now, when you are doing all this, when you are writing a proposal for any funding agency, there are 2-3 more things which you have to write into the research proposal, and those things are they are always concerned. Funding agency, they are always concerned that how you have to justify that how this work is going to add to the disciplinary knowledge. One. Second, how this work is relevant for different stakeholders, like how this work would be relevant for society, how society would be beneficial to it, how practitioners will be beneficial out of it, and how this work would help in taking some policy decisions by the government. Because most of the funding agencies, when they are funding on certain researches, they are always interested to make use of the findings of your research work to formulate certain fundings, to formulate some policies. So they ask you to write some paragraphs on that. Now here, one more thing, funding agencies, they always appreciate if you try to review the different works which are done by different funding agencies for some policy making, and they also try to see that you are well aware about those agencies who are also working in the same field, those who have already worked in that field, and if you have some kind of collaboration with them, like before floating your research proposal, you identify which are the people, which are the agencies, which are the departments which are working in a particular area in which you also are planning to float your proposal. If you are interested, if you have that awareness that these are 5-6 different university departments or different organizations who are already working in that area, and you try to collaborate them with them, and you try to take a letter of collaboration or letter of interest to work with you, and they are also giving, you are also giving those letters of intent to work with you by those organizations, probably the proposal would have more weightage from the point of view of funding of your research work. So this is the total framework under which you can prepare a research proposal. I'll not get into those kind of things, like which organization, in different organizations, like if you are applying for UGC, there's some parameters like you should be in 2F or 12B recognized university. All these things are available, and different funding agencies, they have their own requirements, and those could be downloaded from their websites. But the fundamental things which are required to prepare a sound research proposals could be these, which are many times evaluated or are in the minds of the people who are evaluating your research proposal. So I end up my presentation here. If there will be any concerns or any questions on it, I'll be available to respond to them. Thank you so much.
Hello. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. It is always a soothing experience to listen Dr. Coates on any educational issues, and it becomes a so special talk when sir is speaking on research. He is very keen researcher. Today's topic was very catchy for all the participants of the webinar. Everyone wants to work on funded research from various funding agencies. And after listening this very informative session, they can start working on a project in a more organized way. As you all will be aware that sir is also a member of various evaluation committees for various funding agencies, and 2-3 participants of this webinar were sharing their experiences in chat box because sir was member of the committee from where they got a funded project. So sir, it was a very informative session, and chat box is full of appreciation for the session. And we are really thankful for your precious time and the valuable thought-provoking session. Thank you very much, sir. Now I request and invite Dr. Vikas Kumar to propose a vote of thanks. Dr. Vikas Kumar, over to Dr. Vikas Kumar.
Good evening, everyone. Am I listening?
Yes, sir. You are audible, please.
Good evening, everyone. It has been a very fascinating and engaging 2 sessions. It is my proud privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this August occasion of second day of 7 days faculty development program on research methodology and statistics for social sciences. On behalf of Council for Teacher Education Foundation, Punjab and Chandigarh chapter, and MMMC College, Patiala, I convey my gratitude and heartfelt thanks to our honorable resource persons of the day, Professor Arvind Kumar Jha, Dean, School of Education, Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University, Lucknow, and Professor Amit Kaurs, Dean, Faculty of Education, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. My heartfelt thanks go out to Professor Arvind Jha, whose talk must have provided the participant a sense of direction and much fruitful thought. Thank you very much, sir. With the second session conducted by the most revered personality in the academic sphere, Professor Amit Kaurs, I take this opportunity to express our profuse gratitude and sincere thanks to him for valuable thoughts and he has expressed during this session. I am quite sure that these will be helpful to all the participants. Thank you very much, sir. We are also very thankful to all the participants who have spared time and be with us during these 2 sessions. Thank you very much, participants. Now we will meet tomorrow at the same time with the eminent speakers, Dr. Mandeep Kaur Kochar, Bombay Teacher Training College from Mumbai, and Dr. Amanpreet Singh, School of Management, Punjabi University, Patiala. Thank you one and all. Thank you very much.
Sir, I would like
Professor
to...
Amit, though it is informal, the proceedings are over. Thank you very much. I think I have extracted time from your PMM programs. I know you are quite busy in these days. Once one PMM is concluded, you immediately start the next one. So quite proactive in that approach. Thank you very much for sparing time.
Thank you so much.
Arvindji, thank you so much. Very freshening chat. And if possible, kindly send me the link of those 2 books, Best and Khan and the second one.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Another feather in your cap that you have revised those books.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.